and welcome to Media Light, where we talk about the media that we care about right now. I'm your host, Randy Elaine, and joining me, as always, is the ultimate comic book nerd and my ultimate friend. It's Kris Ingersoll. Kris, how are you tonight?
I'm so good, Randy, especially tonight. We have no guests. It gets to be just you and I being hyped
Mm-hmm.
about a thing. And because there's no guests, I'm not going to bury the lead like I try to normally do during these introduction moments. We're here to talk about Superman. We're here to react to the blockbuster event of the summer. Apologies in advance, Fantastic Four, but Superman is the story of the year. And I'm so excited to gather with you to share our thoughts about it. We're not going to go too deep. It's a media light after all, but I am thrilled to react to this cinematic adventure with you, buddy. How are you tonight?
I am also incredibly thrilled because I know how important Superman and just DC Comics in general are to you. We know you're a Batman guy, but you've never tried to hide your love for Superman.
Mm.
I don't have quite the same background as you. I've been hyped for this Superman movie like I might be hyped for any upcoming superhero film. I hope for the best and I'm excited, but I know you had so much riding on it. And our listeners can hear a lot more of you talking about Superman if they'd like. I believe you're going to be on Socially Distanced later this week, right? With your co-host Dan Cohen. And we'll
That
have
is correct.
Yeah, and we'll have some Batman by the numbers in the near future, I am sure, as well. Digging into this film. This may be your only big chance to hear about Superman from me, but I'm so excited to get to share this here with you tonight, Kris. And we're going to keep this to a media light. We're going to get to our main reactions. We're going to scratch the surface. I know you and I won't be able to avoid hitting a major theme or two. I'm
Hmm.
sure we'll get in touch with our hearts and our emotions, but we're going to try and dive through this without jumping into the 2.5 hours that I'm sure we could land on if we weren't careful. So let's set the stage. I'm going to kick things off with a very light, a little bit cheeky, one sentence plot overview of the movie in lieu of my usual like 3 to 5 minute monstrosity that I tend to read during these podcasts.
Yeah.
All right, Superman 2025 from James Gunn and Company. A privileged and naive goody two shoes struggles under the weight of an identity crisis until his found family rescues him from a tech bro bully. A lot of characters, a lot of angles to get in there, Kris.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How'd I do?
You boiled this thing down beautifully, right? Because it's a very busy movie and not in a bad way, but there's a
Hmm.
lot happening on screen. It would have been easy to get distracted in the synopsis, but this is what folks need to understand about the film. And I don't think that Lex Luthor could be better boiled down, this particular iteration, than tech bro bully. He's a bully to Superman, he's a bully to everybody around him. He is a danger to every person he comes into contact with. I think the only thing I take umbrage with, and maybe the only
Hmm.
the only word I might change in the whole sentence, is this word privileged for Superman. I think
Hmm.
that naive is certainly spot on. Goody two shoes, yeah, not maybe in the same way I sometimes think of that. It's more of how you're a goody two shoes, and less of like how you would use it derogatorily, right? It's not somebody who's really concerned. Superman isn't a goody two shoes in the way he's concerned about others' behavior. It's very important to him to be good. And I
Yes.
think that goody two shoes captures that pretty well. But tell me about your choice of the word privileged here.
Yeah, so I'm not surprised you took issue with this because I spent a lot of time breaking down that portion of the sentence. I wanted to try to get to the bottom of what was happening. So I think where I was coming from with privileged, I think one layer of this is look at our guy, Clark Kent, growing up in the Midwest, country boy, tall, beautiful, athletic man. I imagine there were some advantages that came with that, but we've already established I don't have your same comics background, so you might
Right.
have a little bit to teach me about Smallville here. Um, I think also he's got this little internalized chosen one narrative. Like, I was sent here by my extraterrestrial parents, and I believe they have this wholesome mission for me, and I am going to follow through. I've been blessed with this other set of wholesome parents, and I'm going to live up to this. I've got the tools to do it. I know what's right. Those cactus spikes weren't that big. It's all
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think that's where I was coming from, but I'm also excited to hear you poke some holes in that word choice.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that you were using privilege in sort of the way that I took it. And I think that is where I want to poke back because while
Hmm.
he's certainly naive, and with that naivete comes um, some immaturity, right?
Hmm.
Not in a way that makes him dangerous, almost in a way that makes him quite harmless.
Mm.
Um, but I would say that Clark Kent, despite being like a good-looking, well-spoken, like American male, right? Theoretically a straight white American male, which we both know comes with certain kinds of privilege in this world.
Hmm.
The reality of his lived experience, even that message that gives him this potential for a chosen one narrative, internalized chosen one narrative, it's born from great tragedy, right?
Yeah.
It's never been a secret to him that he is the last Kryptonian. Yes, his parents
Hmm.
sent him here, but not as some sort of mission. It was a reaction to the destruction of everything that they have, to his entire people. And so while it might be seen as a privileged thing to be chosen,
Hmm.
I would say he's bearing a burden in that. Now he has a quality of character that allows him to bear that burden as a calling and not as something weighty and holding him down. He does relate to it as a thing that buoys him, and perhaps it's privileged in that way. But even his upbringing in Kansas, I think, disadvantages him in this world in certain important ways. Right? He is not. He doesn't come from an economically strong background.
Hmm.
Smallville is a very challenged place. It's an
Yeah.
impoverished place. That Kent farm is always barely hanging on. I don't picture him as having gotten the best public school education that this country has to provide, right? So you have a person who both
Hmm.
knows that they are the last being of a destroyed planet, truly alone in the universe. And they had a tough upbringing full of manual labor and economic hardship. I would say what appears to be overconfident privilege is, in fact, hard won through tragedy. And it's hard to believe that this kind of kindness can be anything but naive, but I think it's
Hmm.
actually quite well informed. And that's why it's so much more remarkable that he is who he is and he's as good as he is because he's choosing those kinds of behaviors and those kinds of values despite so many reasons to have broken bad, to be a much
Yeah.
worse person than he really is.
Yeah, I won't get into it on this pod, but you know I love to bring up Crash Test Dummies,
Mm,
Superman song, and that's the crux of that song, right? This choice to protect and save humanity. So I was certainly
mm.
feeling that here. You mentioned Clark's education. Did any of the comics tell us about Clark's journalism education specifically?
No, no.
Because I've got to say, I was pretty disappointed in our boys' journalistic ethics. I'll be teaching a journalism course in the fall, and I think I may incorporate this clip from the new Superman movie to get to the bottom of why it's so important to have ethics when you're choosing who's going to cover which story, etc. But I won't let us get too bogged down in that. I think Lois let him have it.
She really did. I was gonna say, thank God the film itself acknowledges that like his version of journalism isn't really the real thing, and we do see quite a
Hmm.
bit of pretty good journalism happening,
Sure.
I think, in this film, especially from Lois. She sits down for that interview and she's locked in.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
that being said, all the cheekiness from me aside, Chris, I had a blast with this movie.
Mm,
I had a few slight concerns going in, which maybe we'll get into and unpack later. But I want to get into our discussion and just talk about those expectations, right? James
yeah.
Gunn, masterminding Guardians of the Galaxy, doing some great work with DC, trying to restructure everything maybe try to capture some of that magic that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has managed to capture. DC has often been a punching bag over the years, so like the expectations attached to this film, to a beloved character, a character that everyone has an opinion about, the pressure was real, and it's one of the reasons I was a little bit worried about this going in. So my question for you is, did James Gunn and the crew pull it off? Did they pull off this movie? And did they establish a new sort of world that has the chance and the opportunity to be something special?
Simply stated, yes. Like a
Hmm.
thousand times, yes. I'm shocked at the extent to which he pulled it off
Mm.
here because the fact is, during the marketing lead up, like from that first, fortunately for me, I like to be an underdog. So when the first
Hmm.
look of Superman came out and the reaction to the suit was mixed at best,
Sure.
and there was a lot of doubt. But then, like that first trailer came, that teaser, and I remember weeping. I remember reacting to it and weeping
Yes.
just as that guitar synth came in that theme. And each look we got was a little bit more exciting, and it seemed like test screenings are there's a some good buzz around the movie in positive ways. All of that leads to me feeling quite nervous. Like
Yeah.
I feel quite nervous the better the perspective gets.
Yes.
He still managed. So I walked into this movie needing this to not just be good but to be great.
Yeah.
And it still managed to exceed my expectations for it. Not just because of my experience, but because mostly because of the ubiquity of the experience it seems everybody's having at the cinema. I think that's where it was the day after I saw it, I was scrolling threads, and this is what told me he really did it. It wasn't my experience in the theater, it was the next day on threads, seeing post after post that was just a reaction, a sentence, a few to Superman. And it wasn't
Hmm.
just positive, it was positive in a specifically emotive way.
Yeah.
People had a really good feeling leaving this movie. Superman is joyful. Superman is wonderful. Superman is a ton of fun. It wasn't about like, oh my gosh, the action as I'm reliving this movie. It's not about these super cool, oh my God, he did that awesome thing. Did you love when Superman with the eyes? It that's not what's great about it.
Hmm.
And that's not what's great about it is the way it makes a person feel and the way it enables us to all feel together, knowing that everybody was feeling all this joy, this simple, pure, hopeful happiness from this thing, and we all are feeling that at the same time, is so beautiful and such a joy to be a part of. So, yeah, they did it in all the right ways. What do you
Hmm.
think?
Yeah, no, I think it was a huge success as well. Um, The only critiques I have are small ones, and I'm not even going to get into them tonight. There's going to be plenty of time to talk and break down Superman and get into the nuts and bolts. But the thing is, I love this movie. As you
Mm,
know, going in, I got a little bit nervous in the trailer, seeing how many just like heroes and Daily Planet staff members were popping up. I was a little bit like, oof, is this going to be too much for me? And I mean, the answer was an absolute no. It was not too much for me because they went in with so much confidence.
mm,
This world immediately felt lived in. Everyone was there, you know. Beck Bennett showing up as Steve. He had pretty much like one scene that really mattered to establish that he was a total asshole,
mm-hmm,
to let us know how he was going to treat Clark. And that was all he had to do in this movie. And if there is story worth telling with that character as we move forward in the DCU, we are good to go. And I think I feel that way about just about everyone. And again, being a comics novice, I knew literally zero about Mr. Terrific going into this
yeah,
movie, and he was quite possibly my favorite character in the film. I wasn't sure what to make of Nathan Fillion and that bowl cut, and they landed the plan. I understood exactly who he was,
yeah.
uh, and they played him off just the right way. So it was a huge success. And as someone who hasn't read a lot of comic books, I mentioned to you off the pod this felt more like a comic book than any comic book movie I have ever
Mm,
seen.
mm-hmm.
I love Marvel. We've talked about it many times on this podcast. We'll talk about it many more times, I am sure, and I'm looking forward to that. But part of the success of the MCU is being grounded in this like post 9/11 world when that first Iron Man movie hit. It's Tony Stark, the arms dealer. There's this grounded level to it, and the further they get from that, the harder it is for them to maintain their stranglehold on the full audience. I'm not saying they should or shouldn't stick to it. It's just the further you get from that, the harder it can be. In this world, it had fun, It had that heart that Marvel has often had over the DC universe, but it felt different. It felt comic booky. Um, Normally, I would cringe at a bunch of CGI monkeys typing hate posts, but somehow that felt okay in this movie and the world that they established with the rules that they established.
Yeah.
It still wasn't my favorite part, but I loved it. I loved that this was a comic book, and all of that stuff works because the characters work so well. So resounding success in my eyes as well.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned the monkeys because I think that one of the screenplay itself is like the root of the success here. It's a brilliantly
Hmm.
written screenplay. It's tight, right? This movie's an hour and 58 minutes before the credits. This is a tight story despite being so big, right? And having so much in it.
Yeah,
Um, it only answers questions that it establishes within its own text.
yeah,
And those monkeys weren't just a random thing to throw in to further illustrate Lex's uh, absolute evil.
yeah,
It was a logical part of the world because we'd already heard Superman and Lois talk about social media and his relationship to it.
yeah.
So just being able to have a Superman who's barely holding on because of the kryptonite still grimace and say,
Hmm.
"Oh, super shit." Like, of course you're behind it.
Yep.
It's perfect, right?
Yeah.
It helped to really justify that moment because you're right, it could be so cringy and eye rolly
Yep.
and like what a random absurd thing to throw in and how unbelievable is this world? But in this particular world, it really made sense.
Yeah, and a fun way to comment on like just the real life social media like campaigns that go on to do this exact kind of thing, trying to sow discontent with bots, etc., with international interference. So,
Hmm.
because it was grounded in that reality, it worked for me. It felt like legitimate satire.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, legitimate satire. Yeah, this movie, you called it confident. It's really, truly
Yeah.
confident. And I think the reason why it so successfully sets up the next chapter in this universe is because it confidently doesn't try to.
Hmm.
We get a quick glimpse, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen the film, we get a quick glimpse of Millie Alcock as Supergirl at the very end, which you might feel like, oh, there it is. There's the setup for the next thing. But this movie never sacrifices its own story moments in order to shoehorn in some setup for the next thing. It's never
Hmm.
afraid to succeed on its own, which I think at the end there, Marvel has felt like it started to do is like, this thing needs to succeed on its own, but more importantly, we have to make sure it sets up the next thing. Like
Hmm.
as long as we have a next thing, we're going to be okay. And this felt like no, this would actually be just fine if there was no next thing. This is
Yeah.
really wonderful on its own. But there's so many little threads to pull on that allow you to do a next thing. Wildly successful in a totally new way.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I'm excited to keep talking about this, and it wouldn't be media lit if we didn't do some literary or pop culture connections. Do you want to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right, lay them on me. What was top of mind for you in terms of pop culture or even literature?
All right, I'm just gonna do a quick serious one and a quick stupid one. So my
All right.
my quick serious one is when we finally get Nicholas Holt, who just kicked ass as Lex Luthor, by the way.
Hmm.
Incredible stuff from him.
Yes.
But when he is trying to articulate exactly why he takes such umbrage with Superman, beyond this sort of like bigoted perspective we're getting throughout the film, it's this frustration that he feels he had to work so hard for his gifts and his successes, and
Hmm.
he sees Superman as this just unworthy successor who was gifted all this incredible power that Lex
Hmm.
does not think that he deserves. And it was giving me serious Amadeus vibes. That's Salieri and Mozart, man. He
Oof.
literally calls Mozart the creature. Why would God endow this creature with such beautiful gifts? And why am I the only one who understands them and cares about them so well?
Yeah.
So like at the end of this film, we see Lex, getting carted off to prison. The next time we see him, I would love to see it like from a prison cell, like even deeper in a Salieri sort of like still obsessed with Superman kind of place. Certainly he's got to break free eventually, but I hope they show a little restraint there. And then my really quick stupid one. I watch a lot of Friends.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I'm not alone in this world. It's a
Yeah.
it's a top comfort show. You've watched some Friends, Chris.
Oh yeah, watched a ton of Friends. Tons of
So
Friends.
so when Nicholas Hoult was, running the show, fighting Superman, he's mastered all the moves. They're all numbered and coordinated, and he's like shouting them out.
Oh my God, I can't believe the reference you're about to make. Land this plane, baby. What
Yeah,
a great
all
call.
I could think of was Monica Geller labeling
Yes.
the erogenous zones on a woman's body, shouting out the numbers and all these combinations until she's landed herself at a very satisfying conclusion. And that's all I
Yeah.
could think of when Lex was was doing this. And I'm a little embarrassed to say it out loud, but it was just too funny. And uh
Perfect.
and it worked even better after you heard just how personal the stakes were for him at the end.
Yes, absolutely perfect. So brilliantly connected there. What a fun one. Um, yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, Lex and Clark, not to go off on a whole
Hmm.
tangent about more analysis here, but I love that it isn't even so much about the things that Lex has had to work hard for in terms of his achievements,
Hmm.
but but it's about attention and affection in the world. Right? Like Lex is super gifted. I don't know that he feels that he's worked hard for what he's achieved. I do think that he
Mm.
has had to probably from his childhood earn probably first the affection of his father and then other people. And Superman walks in and just everybody loves him.
Yeah.
And that just grinds his gears so badly. Yeah, great call out. I got a couple here, nothing too serious either. I'm glad you mentioned um, that Friends reference perfectly because I was thinking of that same moment. I connected it right to playing video games, but specifically
Yes.
playing competitive fighting games with
Yeah.
friends, whether it's Smash Bros. Or specifically Mortal Kombat. Like, inevitably, we all want to think we're better than just hammering a given combo set or a
Yeah.
specific punch button. But sometimes you've just had enough, and all you want to do is just 1A, 1A, 1A. Watching Lex, like, despite how much brain he was using to defeat the Brawn and how
Yes.
how many clever combinations and how really good he is at this video game, right? Like
Yep.
he can juggle you with a 25 combo and take your health before you've hit the ground.
Hmm.
But he still succumbs to the raw human frustration that ultimately all he wants to do is punch this thing he hates so much in the face.
Yeah.
And it's 1A, 1A, 1A. So yeah, real life gaming, video gaming, and that those feelings that come with it were all over this in those moments. Um, I also really enjoyed comparing Superman here to our Captain America, Steve
Mm.
Rogers, specifically in the MCU.
Yeah.
These two characters feel really akin in that they manage to make corny cool,
Yeah.
corny in the most earnest and honest way that yeah, you can't help but just give it to them. And Superman, more so even than Cap, is here only for his own values and his own righteousness without projecting that on to other people. Um, I was waiting for our Superman though in the team up moments to give us like a language quip at
Yes.
one of his
Yes.
fellow heroes. I think that's where he was giving me the Steve Rogers in the purest way. Um, yeah, so good that it's actually punk rock. And so it was giving me very much Chris Evans, Captain America.
Yeah. Our Superman may not have been encased in ice for several decades, but he might benefit from a pop culture list if we are to believe Lois's assessment of his musical tastes, and I think she was absolutely correct.
Yeah. It's probably pop culture isn't his problem. It's the good stuff in between the pop culture that he missed out on.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've been having fun up to this point. We've already talked about several of these, but something we love to do is talk about just either a laugh or just. I decided to go with a fun moment from this film
Hmm.
because there are plenty of laughs, but there were other things that were fun in ways that weren't necessarily laugh out loud. But I just had such a good time. So, Chris, there are many to pick from, but what's your favorite fun moment from Superman 2025?
All right, so I'm gonna smuggle one in here because
Please.
silly, small, but I believe truly intentional. I don't know if you caught that James Gunn and Zack Snyder both recently featured on Rick and Morty.
Oh no.
as themselves. And it's a moment where they're like in the DC commissary or whatever getting lunch, and they have a quick conversation about
Yep.
like Zack Snyder's giving James Gunn some advice on the new movie and blah blah blah. And it highlighted the fact that they are real life friends. They don't
Yep.
take each other or themselves too seriously. Um, Lex, in frustration, will knock a mug, like a pen
Yes.
cup, off of a console, and for absolutely no reason at all, they give us this slow motion moment as the cup goes to the ground and hits and the pens fall out. I swear to God, that was the Zack Snyder shot of the film where James Gunn was like, well, we got to take care of the Snyder bros. So we got to put in one of those cool slow mo moments where it starts off fast and it ramps down real quick. I had so much fun in that moment because I firmly believed it was James Gunn, not even taking a swipe at, but just like almost lovingly nodding to the Snyder Bros and to Zack Snyder with that totally unnecessary and weirdly otherwise makes no sense moment with the pen cup.
Yes.
So I enjoyed that very, very much. But in terms of like the movie going experience, this movie has a style and an
Hmm.
identity all of its own, but James Gunn is a stylistic filmmaker. And this looks and feels like a James Gunn movie. There's one moment that delivers the riotous fun that the Guardians films could
Hmm.
deliver with a pop culture backed violence that only James Gunn can pull off. Like, how can it be so fun to watch a person dismantle hundreds of other people
Yeah.
in extremely violent ways? I don't know, though. James Gunn way is how. So when Mr. Terrific encases Lois in the force field and then dives out so he can take out every one of those raptors, and Planet
Hmm.
Watch took a massive L single handedly
Yep.
to Mr. Terrific, I was having a blast in the cinema. Like we get like a Superman Unleashed moment later in the movie that's also a lot of fun, but this moment with the T spheres
Yes.
moving in a million different directions, Mr. Terrific's Olympic level athleticism on display,
Yep.
along with the genius tech, it was a blasty blast, all with that wonderful pop culture or pop music backing that James Gunn does so well. So a standout moment in the film for me.
Yeah. So I'm gonna yes and you for mine, Chris, because that was at the top of my list as well.
Nice.
This was Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific. Now, fortunately, you already articulated why the moment was so fun visually, but this one had an extra personal connective moment to me because before it even started and the music kicked in, I was like, wait, is this Noah and the Whale? 5 years time? A song that I thought was a random song from 2008 that only my wife and I continued to love ever since 2008 that I never in a million years would have stopped to think I was going to hear in a major superhero movie. Yeah, that's like a beloved song for me and my wife that I
Awesome.
never expect in a movie. So I was partially in awe of that, partially in awe of what was happening visually, and that was fun. But I'm going to smuggle in my runner-up, which is, oh, I guess I'll just say like every stupid thing that Guy Gardner
Yeah.
used the Green Lantern ring to create, with like perhaps number one stupidest being the oven mitts to battle a giant kaiju was inspired um,
Yes.
and fun, and the possibilities for that character within this new DCU are endless. So
Yeah.
thrilled for that.
He even says it. He's like, "Look, I made giant oven mitts." Like he's so pleased with himself. It's so silly. Yeah, I almost picked, but it was all over the trailer, so I didn't pick it. But the big green hands flipping these
Yes.
trucks and tanks that mixed in with middle fingers left and right
Hmm.
was wonderful.
Yeah. Well done and well played.
Yeah. All right, so that was fun. It's time to go to the other side of the emotional spectrum a little bit here. What was for you the best emotional moment of the film?
Okay. I honestly think there is only one correct answer.
Yeah.
And I'm actually gonna try to leave the runway open for you on that one because I know that you're gonna cook for it. So I'm gonna take this in a slightly different and slightly less serious direction, but still emotional. And I am going to go to the first kiss
Hmm.
between Lois and Clark. The floating in the air kiss at the end, that was fine. It was well executed. Nothing wrong with that. But that first kiss, we've been dating for a few months. Clark is making breakfast for dinner, which he insists must be Lois's favorite.
Yeah.
That was a passionate kiss.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about like how is the DCU going to differentiate itself from the MCU? Maybe the MCU should be taking some notes on that scene because that is one human element that they steer as far away from as they possibly can. And I think possibly to their own detriment.
Yeah.
So if James Gunn's going to keep pulling off chemistry like that, like look out because it helped me believe in that relationship even more so than the two of them, floating in a mall.
Yep. Yeah. Make superhero movies romantic again. Like
Yeah.
it, to your point, it's such a human element, and it's so important to know what our heroes are fighting for.
Yeah. Yeah, if we could have like 1998 MTV Movie Awards, like that
Oh
kiss is
yeah.
easily winning Best Kiss at the MTV Movie Awards.
Absolutely. I will agree with you. The kiss in that moment outshines. Like the passion in that moment is much more intimate. Like we're up
Hmm.
close, we're in the kitchen area there, and it's steamy, right? It's very,
Yeah.
very steamy. But for me, when I think about like being so excited to go watch this movie with my wife and share it with her and
Hmm.
like love seeing their love on screen because it reminds us of our own
Yes.
chemistry, the lead up to that floating
Mm.
air kiss at the end
Yes.
where Lois is leading Superman in for an interview. They're waiting until they are like just far enough away from everybody, just private enough, and she has her back to him because she's leading him, and she turns and she rushes towards him into the kiss, and he's rushing into her like they both have
Yes.
just been barely containing this magnetism for as long as they can. It's wonderful, great
Yeah.
pick. I was ready to go to the kisses, as you can tell, if you took what I
Yes.
feel is the big, big emotional moment. So I'm glad you went there. Um, for me, though, it has to be the conversation with Pa Kent
Yeah.
back on the farm. Um, you nailed it really well in your one sentence synopsis. A big part of this is the identity crisis happening within Superman.
Hmm.
He's extremely powerful. He's damn near invulnerable. And even when he does get hurt, he just has to fly off to the sun for a little bit and he gets right back to good.
Hmm.
He's vulnerable emotionally, right? He's vulnerable to his own doubts. And he's been so sure of himself for his whole life. So this identity crisis is absolutely the thing that most threatens our hero in this film. He has upheld this message from his parents as like, this is who I am. This defines me. This external thing, this thing separate from myself tells
Hmm.
me who I'm supposed to be. And man, oh man, when his father comes alongside of him, a man who's perfectly cast, by the way, both from
Yes.
his performance, like his physicality, his physical look, his voice, all of it is perfect. Um, man, when he comes and approaches his boy, and you can just feel how much love is there and deep intimate knowledge, right? Like he knows Clark like nobody else does, probably better than Clark even knows himself at this point. That's the magic of parents.
Hmm.
When he tells Clark that parents aren't for telling you who you're supposed to be, we just give you all the tools to go out there and make fools of yourselves all on your own. Man, I was, of course, weeping in the cinema when his dad choked out how proud he was of Clark. And it's
Hmm.
so desperately, so simply what Clark needed to hear in that moment
Yeah.
to just feel better, just to be near his dad and to collapse into his dad's arms. This big, big hulking Superman that we have, right? He
Yep.
never feels over large in this movie or too big for the world because he is so approachable and he's
Yes.
so human. And yeah, you see him in that moment and he doesn't seem small, but it doesn't seem absurd
Hmm.
either to watch him nuzzle into his dad and
Yeah.
just be comforted. Um, it is a wonderful, wonderful thing when Pa Kent highlights for Clark that beyond what the message itself says, what you want it to mean makes all the difference in the world.
Yep.
I think a lot about we when you read things in the world. They can be
Hmm.
taken a lot of different ways. Two people can read the same scripture and have two different takeaways from it. I think it's important for all of us to reflect on the meaning we take from stuff and what we want things to mean and how much that speaks to who we are inside. And it should cause us to reflect and look deeply. In this case, it gets to be a positive reflection for Clark that, yeah, wow, I guess maybe there was really no reason ever to conclude that what they wanted from me was to save people. I guess I did fill in a lot of blanks there. That's like a
Hmm.
powerful thing to realize that no, dude, it was you all along.
Yes.
You are good. And for us as the moviegoers, Parkin doesn't have to say this, but we know like, so much of that he got from this beautiful couple,
Yes.
Mom Pa Kent, who raised him so simply and lovingly.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, when that gets bookended with the home videos at the end, when he's
Yeah.
back in the chair, how did you make it through that scene? Were you weeping in the end?
I tend to weep more when I'm reflecting later on sometimes. I was in the moment I was just thinking like
Yeah,
yes, this is how you land the plane. But like yes and to everything that you said.
yeah,
And I love the casting. I understand the temptation to, make Pa Kent Kevin Costner or whatever, make him, some aging leading man, who can maybe like match Superman in some version of like physical uh appearance, someone who,
handsome.
yeah, so like, maybe someone who like fits like this generic stereotype of what like a rugged like farmer from the Midwest is going to look like. For Ma and Pa Kent to be so believably human, and they look and feel so vulnerable, and not only emotionally but physically. Um, they're not pretentious with their knowledge or their love. They are just there for him. I thought that was a really brave choice. And yeah, it's perfect stuff. That's where I was gonna go.
Yeah,
Uh, but I knew you'd land the
beautiful,
plane even better.
beautiful. I've heard some people mock or balk a little bit at like that first appearance of the Kents in this, like they were being portrayed as like overly simple or like
Hmm.
dummies as they were struggling to use the phone. But I took that as the most believably wholesome. Yeah, these are parents who like probably especially because they live in the Midwest, like and they're of a certain generation. They're older parents. We know that the Kents received Clark later in
Hmm.
life. Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me that she's talking too loud,
Yeah,
that she doesn't appreciate that she can just speak normally and be heard. And she
yeah,
got the thing on speaker and it's sitting down on the table. All of that looked and felt so believable.
absolutely.
Maybe more like what talking to my grandparents feels like than my parents, but that's how it should be for Superman, that his
Oh man.
parents are sort of grandparent age, sort of.
I mean, not to sidetrack us, but can you imagine how much Pa Kent would cry if he watched Bluey?
Oh,
Whew.
mush, she
Those
calls him.
kids learning to work for themselves. All right, but speaking of things we love, speaking of great performances,
Yeah.
Chris, there are a lot of candidates in this category, but like I'm gonna try to make you pick like the MVP of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to be like on the nose here because there are so many, and I could probably be more clever about this. Um, pu- I almost don't want to go first. Um, because part of me wants to make it a pairing, but I'm gonna,
Go with
it's,
the pairing. I think you
I,
should do it.
so Superman and Lois, Clark
Yeah.
and Lois together in this film, they gave us a version of these characters that we don't often see, a place in their relationship
Yep.
that isn't often portrayed. Um, it was really wonderful to me to watch Lois interview Superman and be in full control and watch him go a little bit to pieces. What a contrast to Christopher Reeve flying into Margot Kidder's balcony and watching her fall all to pieces. This we're supposed to believe Lois Lane is this like all powerful journalist and can
Hmm.
get any story, and she's like weak at the knees. Margot Kidder is like she can barely get a sentence out,
Hmm.
and that's not the dynamic we see here.
Yes.
There's already so much trust between them and still room to grow. They were well established and successful and confident on their own. They were even better when they were
Yeah.
together.
Yep.
This world doesn't really work if we don't believe their dynamic, if we don't believe their
Yeah.
love, if we don't believe that Clark, Superman has this connection in the world. Um, they had to get this right.
Yep.
It's it's been done well in the past. Like I don't mean to knock Christopher
Sure.
Reeve and Margot Kidder, right? That's wonderful chemistry. It's iconic on screen. But even that, I go back and rewatch those, and a lot of that feels like we're told that it's very romantic, and we're told they're the iconic couple, but there actually isn't as much substance when you rewatch it. This,
Yeah.
it's heavily textual. To your point,
Yeah.
every kiss is overflowing with passion.
Yeah.
No Superman has been as correct on screen as this David Corenswet Superman.
Yeah.
From the look to the voice to the portrayal itself, the writing, it's all just he's Superman for
Yeah.
our age, for any age. And she's Lois. It was giving me My Adventure with Superman in such
Yeah.
potent ways. I'm so glad you've seen the show. So while you were watching this, you had that point
Mm-hmm.
of reference. Some things feel pulled right from that show. Um, yeah, I could absolutely watch like a show about Lois Lane after this.
Oh
This
yeah.
Lois Lane. You're like, I could get another movie that's just more intimately about them and whatever next is
Mm-hmm.
happening in their lives together. Um, when you asked earlier about the success of this for setting up this larger universe and giving us
Mm-hmm.
confidence that James Gunn can be the guy who knows how to empower these stories, looking at Lois and Clark in this film, it gives
Yeah.
me all the confidence in the world.
Yeah. I'm so glad you shouted them out. I was partly being selfish when I asked you to double up because I have too many people that I want to talk about. But there was no casting choice I was more excited about going in than Rachel Brosnahan
Hmm. Hmm.
as Lois. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is one of my favorite shows of all time. Midge Maisel is one of the best characters. She is this strong woman in a man's world. But what I love about the characters, we're not always meant to root for her. She's not
Hmm.
always right. She's not even always likable. So there is room for this Lois to be flawed and ask questions of herself. And if this experiment does work out, if we are here in 10 years talking about the DCU still going strong, adding new characters, that would be lovely. If we ever do find ourselves in that place, and we're doing a podcast someday ranking, the five most important moments in the DCU, that interview sequence between Lois and Clark is going to be the thing that made this whole experiment work.
Mm.
It was the fabric that held that movie together. Not everything about the global conflict in this film worked for me,
Hmm.
but the way it fueled that initial conflict between them was flawless and a
Yeah.
perfect starting point for us. So yeah, but I'm just gonna quickly give it to Nicholas Hoult as
Yeah.
MVP. Yes, Lex Luthor is a mustache twirling villain obsessed with getting revenge on Superman, but he gave us a little bit more than that. Like I think sometimes people see this like bald comic book character and they're like, let's make him a weirdo. And he is, and he
Hmm.
is in this film as well. But there were just so many more human elements. I loved the fact that he had that sort of emotional self-awareness of what was motivating him. And I also loved the way they incorporated this like very human flaw of where he is obsessed with these like terrifying, like abusive one-sided relationships where he seems to like kind of carelessly like go through these relationships for purely selfish and physical reasons and he's
Hmm.
so willing to hurt them and that's like the type of flaw you don't necessarily always see with the Lex Luthor and I thought that was really interesting in this world and it was
Hmm.
such a fun payoff for those the sexy selfies to like also contain the clues that were going to help take him down. That was so well woven into the plot because it's not just that he was defeated by Superman. Uh, he lost through his own carelessness.
Hmm.
For someone who prides himself on being so smart, to give so much access to someone he treats so horribly, was a pretty dumb move.
Yeah.
And but Nicholas Hoult, he makes it all believable. Can't wait to see more of him.
Yeah, great pick. Great pick. He was in this performance, end to end, totally embodying the character. They did a great job of giving him stuff to do, despite being in only a few kind of isolated spaces. in this film. We kind of see him in that command center quarterbacking the missions. We see him at the fortress briefly. We see him in his own office, and that's about it. Because they have him quarterbacking things, he's so much more active than Lex Luthor's of the past. Like when he's kind of pacing around that command center and he's high-fiving people, it's this highly energized, highly dynamic environment. He is filling that character with life beyond just the words that are being spoken. What a great pick.
Hmm.
I think maybe if we're being honest, we can give an honorable mention here, an honorable MVP between the two of us, a shared pick even, to James
Sure.
Gunn himself.
Yeah,
He wrote and
absolutely.
directed this film. He had an amazing amount of pressure on his shoulders as
Hmm.
president of this budding studio experience, as the director of this film, as the writer of this film. I mean, if he was feeling particularly responsible for the success that this film is enjoying right now, he would deserve to feel that way.
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
um, it takes more than a village. It takes a city to put together a film like this and to make it successful. No one person really can claim ownership of the success, but when you've both written and directed, you get about as close as anybody else.
Hmm.
Okay. Man, that was fun. I could keep talking about this movie forever, but we are talking about something that is meant to set up a whole universe. We're in a world where metahumans have existed for 300 years. What a phenomenal choice, by the way. Great device that this film started with. 330. Too smart. But there is more to come.
Yeah.
So let's talk about who's the character that you're most interested in keeping an eye on as we move forward into this DCU.
Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit off the pod, but a performer I really love is Anthony Carrigan.
Yeah.
And I really only know him from HBO's Barry. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. It's not a feel-good show. Um, it feels at the beginning like it's a sitcom, but really it's a drama that's maybe more deeply committed to being honest about how stories would play out than any other show that I've watched. It can be a tough watch, but Anthony Carrigan is NoHo Hank is such a huge standout. He can be the comic relief. He can go to these deeply emotional and vulnerable places. In fact, during my Superman viewing, I had a positive experience. I did have a group behind me that was pretty talkative, not so egregiously that it ruined the film for me. Um, but when you get the moment where Metamorpho starts crying in the cell, he's
Mm.
so broken up. uh there was kind of like a like, bro, why is he crying, kind of like, I can't handle this emotional vulnerability response from the people behind me. And I was just sitting there in my glory thinking, this is what I want in a
Yeah.
superhero movie. So to know the range that that character has, I'm a little bit worried about being hidden behind like prosthetics and CGI type stuff. I'd love to see more of his physicality. But if you get some good storylines, you can make a character who, is visually very comic booky and complicated, be really human. So I hope they find that story for him moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. Really well picked. Rex Mason is an interesting comic book character,
Yeah.
Metamorpho, the Element Man. I thought his
Hmm.
powers were super interesting to behold on
Oh
screen.
yeah.
Perfect fodder for the James Gunn visual style,
Hmm.
being able to, transform parts of his body only. So now he's just a head floating on gas, and
Yeah.
so wonderful. I do love the choice. I mean, to your point, um, it's there's a lot burying our boy Anthony, right? All that
Yep.
makeup and prosthetic. I am grateful they went practical rather than like mocap CGI,
Yep.
right? That face is very tactile. Like you
Yeah.
know what it would be like to to hug
Hmm.
that man, to feel that face in your arms. So you definitely lose some of the Anthony Carrigan of it all because of the
Yeah.
makeup, but also grateful they went with the practical choice there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so much more to see. Brilliant emotional moment there, having to wrestle he did with, man, I just let this guy die. I'm trying to protect my own baby, but is it okay to let somebody else die because of that? Oh
Hmm.
God. James Gunn.
Yeah.
Okay, for me, we've talked, I guess, about Mr. Terrific. We've given him his flowers. We both agree he
Yeah.
was maybe stole the show in a lot of ways. Could have been a pick for MVP of the movie.
Yeah, huge standout.
I do think he had the best fight scene in the movie. Um,
Hmm.
some of the best one-liners, some of the best dialogue outside of Superman and Lex.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know whose voice has ever been cooler
Yeah.
in cinema. Everything about him is aesthetically was amazing. But
I
that's
mean,
not who
he
I'm going
could
to
use a
pick.
faster garage door opener, but that's about it.
So fun. That could have been my fun moment of the movie. Again,
Yeah.
a classic James Gunn. Like we're just going to slow this thing down for a beat,
Yep.
audience. And despite this only being an hour and 58, we're going to spend a solid 30 seconds watching this garage door open.
Yep.
Yeah, really wonderful. But he's not going to be my pick for the
Yeah.
character I'm excited to watch moving forward. It's going to be Hawk Girl. Elizabeth
Yeah.
Merced brought, I got that wrong, Isabel Merced
Yeah.
brought Hawkgirl to life for us here, without a ton to do in the movie, right? They didn't
Hmm.
overload the story with these extra characters. They helped to fill out the world. They each had a specific purpose in the story and in the dynamic. I see her Hawkgirl is falling somewhere right between Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific. There's probably a version of this movie that spends more time with those characters, makes more of them, and we see maybe more of a conflicted choice about whether or not she goes with Terrific or stays with Guy Gardner as Mr. Terrific chooses to go off and help.
Hmm.
Traditionally in the comic books, she is a harder nosed hero. She
Yeah.
is tougher, and a little bit more excessive in her use of force than like a
Hmm.
Superman might be. But she's also deeply nuanced and interesting and far from like Guy Gardner is as one note in the comic books as he seems
Yeah.
on screen here, right? Like perfectly one note, a ton of fun, but you basically know what you get from him.
Yep.
And there is much more to explore with Hawk Girl traditionally, and so I'm really curious to see how she gets used moving forward. Where we'll see her next. I know she's going to pop up in Peacemaker, and we'll get some more time
Yep.
with that character, get to hear a little bit more of her voice, understand her perspective on the whole superhero thing in this world. But um, she was charming
Yeah.
and fun, and she's friends with Superman, which buys her a lot of credit. But
Yeah.
watching her tell the president of this fictional nation that, oh, I'm not Superman, and then drop
Yep.
him was like, okay,
Yeah. No reasonably spiky cactuses for you. You are being dropped to your doom. Yes.
doom, doom.
Dude,
Um,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm just really excited to see more of her in that super cool helmet.
Yeah, I'm so excited you shouted out Isabel Merced. I was like really torn between her and Anthony Carrigan. But man, watching her on The Last of Us season two, she was just so phenomenal on that show. Such incredible range, such incredible spirit, but also such incredible heart. She's
Hmm.
got that hard edge, but also that soft center. And like the possibilities are endless for that performer. I think that was an incredibly smart casting choice. And one of the main reasons I'm excited to tune into Peacemaker season two. So
Yeah.
speaking
Shout
of
out.
which, fun cameo in the movie.
I was just about to say, shout out to Chris Peacemaker for his cameo in this film. Chris Smith, John Cena himself. It was fun to watch the audience react to that. Everybody was excited to see him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Chris, we've gone a little bit longer than we usually do for a media light, but I think it's just a sign of how much we loved this movie, how
Yeah.
excited we were to get to share that experience together. I know how much Superman means to you, and I'm so glad that we've got like a new touchstone to help us continue to bond as podcasting partners and friends. But speaking of us as podcasters, I just want to quickly shout out some things we have coming up in the very near future. Next week, you will get to hear a really fun episode we recorded with Kelvin Cately of Dat Feelin' Podcast Network on a great early 2000s album, The Love Below from
Yeah.
Outkast. So excited to share that with you. We had a blast chatting with Kelvin, and he had some really great insights into that album. Um, we'd also love to hear from you on our social media and in our email. We are going to be recording the next installment in our Knives Out series with Pop Break editor-in-chief Bill Bodkin really soon to dig into The Glass Onion. So if you got any thoughts on that film, on Knives Out, please hit us up with that. We'd love to read some of that stuff on the episode. And similarly, we've got a couple of really exciting guests lined up to do an instant reaction to the Fantastic Four when that comes out later this month. So we've got some really
Yeah.
fun content, and feel free to hit us with that stuff. Chris, where should people hit us up with all these thoughts, feelings, and opinions?
First and foremost, just Google Media Lit Podcast or Media Lit Pod, and you're gonna find us on places like Blue Sky and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and even YouTube now. Like, follow, subscribe, keep up to date with all of the things we've got coming your way. But the email inbox is open as well. You can find us at media.slash.lit@gmail.com.
Perfect. Chris, thank you so much. I know you're going to shout this out, but I just want to support you really quickly and tell everyone they've got to check you out on Socially Distanced from the Pop Break Podcasting Network later this week. You and Dan, I know, are going to do a great job going even deeper on Superman, not to mention your upcoming Batman by the Numbers coverage. But Chris, in addition to all that
Yeah.
stuff, what do you have going on?
Yeah, thanks, but I'm so stoked to get with Bill and Amanda and Dan
Yeah.
later this week on Superman. Dan and I will be chatting again later on Superman as well for Batman by the Numbers. So stay tuned. The Batman by the Numbers and on the Pop Break podcast feed, socially distanced on its own feed. Going to be a lot of more Superman content coming your way later this month. On top of those things, I'm also an actor and a voice actor. I'm a father and I'm a husband. You can find me doing those things on Instagram at Kris underscore Ingersoll. That's Chris spelled like Kringle. Oh, and I'm on Blue Sky too. I always forget Blue Sky, but if you do the same sort of Chris spelled like Kringle, Ingersoll, you'll find me on Blue Sky too.
Beautiful. And as for me, your host, Randy Elaine, I'm going to ask you to find Media Lit Podcast on all these socials. I've got myself hooked up to all those accounts. You can find me there. You can find Chris there. I'd love to get a follow, but even more, I'd love to see you follow the show and send us your thoughts. We've had some new podlings reaching out to us on YouTube, so I'm excited to start shouting out some of these great comments we've been getting on our next long form episode. And we'd love to hear from you next. Let us know what you'd love to hear us cover. And Chris, I think we did it. I think that brings us to the end of another Media Light. Thanks for a great chat.
Thank you, buddy. I'm so glad we got to do this.